And welcome back to the Texas Longhorn Football Channel, the Modcast, which is actually the brainchild of Alex Dunlap, probably one of his best ideas for the title of a show ever, with the Modcast. And look, there's no Jeff Ketchum that's here, but you still got Jason Sukumel is always here. Alex Dunlap is always here. Cole Patterson coming in with an interesting map over your right shoulder. Of the year, what's on this map, Cole? What are we looking at?
It's just different spellings, I guess, of the different designs in each state with different lettering and all of that. I needed something behind me for podcasts. I'm like, why not?
It's in it. Your background is always interesting. So it's just different designs for states or letters for states. Is what are we saying?
Yeah, it's like different colors and different fonts and different.
Cole got his first apartment recently, and he's like, "I got to fill these walls with something." Let's be honest.
This is clearly
it's not as cool as you might think, or not. It's just different shades and fonts and stuff.
You know what it reminds me of, Cole? In Jason Alex, you'll do that bachelor pad that you ever first had, that before it ever had a woman's touch to it. The posters on the wall, the hats, and everything like that. Now, I guarantee you, if I go into Alex's house, it smells like flowers in there. There's beautiful artwork and decoration, right? There's like ceramic art. Like, I bet you it's beautiful, right? Nothing like your original bachelor pad.
Well, my original, but what's this a lot the same as my original bachelor pad was a loft where I had like nothing on the walls or nothing anywhere. And my wife's sort of the same way that I am, man. We don't put up pictures. We're very minimalist with stuff. So I have a couple of shoulder mounts from some Axis deer, and I have 2 paintings, and that's all we have up in the whole house. So yeah,
we're like out of wall space in my house. I'm like, my wife brings shit home. Like, where are you gonna put this? We are running out of room.
Dude. I mean, my wife literally, dude. It's so funny. Like, I just got back from one of my monthly trips to Goodwill, dude. She can't shovel shit in the back of my truck fast enough to get the hell out of the house. So
tax right off.
We'll get into the sponsor for a second. My long-term goal is actually clear out my garage and actually have it to be like that man cave space that so many cool people have. But I just haven't felt like hauling stuff up to the attic, so it kind of is what it is. The Modcast, though, if you look at the top there, it is sponsored by DeadSoxy, one of our favorite sponsors here. Look, if you use the promo code Orangebloods, you get 25% off your order. It looks like, did you know they make custom socks as well? You can get $100 off your custom orders. All of us here on Orangebloods, we get with DeadSoxy. I'm wearing DeadSoxy right now. Alex when he finally got and complained about not getting his shipment and finally got it in. I think, Alex, you became a lover of DeadSoxy. Is that correct? If fair to say?
Man. Yeah, dude. Anytime I'm wearing like the only time I'm not wearing DeadSoxy is when I'm like about to go to the gym. Like that's it, man. Like those socks, you could probably wear them in the gym because they
make socks for that too. Yeah,
they got the ankle highs as well.
Right, but those socks, to me, I almost feel like they're too nice to wear to the gym. I don't want to sully them with my sweaty feet, man. I like to save them for the good times,
Well, make sure you guys check out DeadSoxy.com. Use the promo code Orangebloods to get 25% off your order. Make sure you tell them that we sent you over there, the good guys over there at DeadSoxy. Guys, the 5-star rankings rivals released theirs yesterday. And Jason, what was there, about 32, 33 5 stars? 32 5 stars. I remember people on our board saying they trying to be just like the NFL. But there was a lot of interesting things that happened. Arch maintains his number 1 ranking. He's been dropped for some people, but he holds on to that. Jonte Cook goes into that as well. Jason, I'll start with you though. If you look at the rankings, were there any surprises for you? Anything that jumped out to you? And of course, want to get your thoughts on Arch and Jonte as well. And of course, Anthony Hill, which don't forget him.
Yeah. I don't consider it a real shock, but I thought it was interesting. Like you said, you've got 32 5-star rankings. And then Malik Muhammad, the Texas cornerback commitment, just missed the cut at 35. CJ Baxter at 36. So those guys are really close. Both those guys, Malik Muhammad actually dropped a spot in the rankings from the previous update, which is a little surprising because I wasn't at the Under Armour Under Armour All-American Bowl practices, but everybody out there raved about his performance out there. CJ Baxter, I think, is just a victim, and Cole can talk about this, of just the running backs. I mean, their running backs are kind of devalued in a weird kind of way right now. So in the NFL draft and recruiting rankings, so there's no 5-star running backs. Justice Haynes is 33, Ruben Owens 34, CJ Baxter 36. Not shocked at all that Anthony Hill made it. Not shocked at all Jonte Cook made a pretty nice rise. Even if Jonte would have stayed where he was at, he would have been a 5-star, but he actually moved up to number 24. And then the Arch Manning situation at number 1. We weren't surprised. I mean, we kind of knew he was staying at number 1. We kind of assumed it. Cole knew it. But you had a couple other recruiting services that dropped him. I think On3, Cole has him at 3. Did you say ESPN had him at 5 or 6? Which was it, Cole?
Yeah, they dropped him to 2 during the season. I believe in their last update, he's number 5.
5. So, Texas, Rivals still has him at number 1 overall. I'm going to say it, Anwar. I don't have a problem with anybody who drops him out of that number 1 spot. I don't have a problem with Rivals keeping him there. Obviously, he's very talented. He's got the pedigree. He's got the work ethic. He's an early enrollee. And we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit between 1 and 3 and 5. But you know what? There is still, for me, some question with Arch about the level of competition. We never saw him at any camps where he could truly be kind of measured, next to some of these other elite prospects and, in the same setting. So, I can understand why some people might have a little bit of question. But again, I mean, we're splitting hairs. He's a 5-star across the board. And, if you're going to stick your neck out pretty early on and have him number 1, I guess probably keeping him there is the safe bet. A lot of people, a lot of fans say, oh, people just dropped him at the end because they knew it would get clicks and would get people talking about their rankings. Look, like we're doing it right now. But, I thought it was fairly interesting that he held on to that number 1 spot. And, I can kind of see both sides of that equation there. But the Rivals decided to keep him where he'd been all year at number 1.
Jason, it is kind of weird, though, to say someone is the number 1 prospect in the country and then all of a sudden say, nah, I changed my mind. Like, it seems to me if you say someone's the number 1 guy, what would have changed that dramatically? And it's not for us to answer, right? It's not that we didn't, Rivals didn't drop, so it's not necessary for us to answer. But it is interesting, though, to say, all right, that's our guy. He's number 1. Nothing's changed, but now to then drop him and say, well, I think these other teams are better. For me, as a person who doesn't follow rankings as closely, it makes me question someone's rankings just a little bit. Is that an unfair question or thought process where I'm seeing a ton, seeing movement? I can understand a guy potentially moving up, but when a guy is dropping down, when nothing has really changed, he's never really done the camp circuit, right? He's, he's always played at the same school. It just comes across as weird to me.
Yeah, and you've got some other guys who maybe performed well in some of these All-American Bowls or things like that caught your attention. Arch's last game in high school was not a good performance. He turned the ball over a few times and a couple that were returned for touchdowns. I don't know who they have ranked ahead of him in these other services. I'd have to look, but it kind of just depends on more like how much stock do you want to put in the Under Armour All-American practices.
It's the process. It's the process. Like the process of ranking these guys. And look, I don't do it at the high school level, but I do this at the NFL level for the NFL draft, right? For receivers, running backs. And, I could think of a bunch of like over the course of the last 3 years, I can think of times when I started out the process. Like last year, I started out the process with Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1. By the end of it, after we had the combine, after I'd gone and seen these guys live and in person, been to the pro days, talked to people, and taking everything into consideration, I had the more full picture. I bumped Chris Olave up to number 1 just because I thought
you had pro days and combines there. I mean, Arch I don't know what he's done to hurt himself, but
right. But it's also just exposure, right? Like it's also just exposure. It's more time to think about it. It's like, well, it's like Olave can run these routes, and he could, and now I know he runs he runs a sub 4.40, so he's not just good in the intermediate field and like is a zone kind of guy that can sit in these soft spots in zone. Like maybe the NFL, he could take the top off, and like we saw this year with Olave. I mean, he was tied for most in targets over 20 plus yards. I don't even know how we're talking about Olave. Oh, so right. Olave, Garrett Wilson. I had a similar thing where I had DK Metcalf number 1 until maybe halfway through the process. And I realized that I should have AJ Brown over DK Metcalf. Whether that's right or not, I don't, we can argue it. But what I'm just saying is I think as you get more exposure to these guys, as you go through the process, you have to start out with somebody at number 1, right? And I feel like it's okay to I think if you start with
a no-brainer, like in the beginning, right? I mean, to start with at number 1. I mean,
and Arch didn't even start at number 1. If in the original rankings, Malachi Nelson actually was number 1. And for on 3, I don't know who ESPN has in front of him. I think they might still have Malachi Nelson. I know they've always been high on him, but I know on 3 has Nico. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Leva, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but the California quarterback going to Tennessee, they have him as their number 1 overall prospect and dropped Arch to 3. And a lot of that, I mean, I can kind of see where they're where they're coming from. He's got all the measurables, got the big arm, and it's hard not to look at what Hendon Hooker just did in that Tennessee offense and kind of project what Nico's going to do. So, I mean, and he just played that All-American game at the Polynesian Bowl. So kind of like Alex said, there's a lot of context that goes into it. And, at the end of the day, I feel like, especially when it comes to quarterback, it's really what you prefer, kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking for that big arm, or, Arch obviously has the intangibles that nobody else can really match. At the end of the day, I mean, he's a top 5 prospect on every site as far as I'm aware. So, Nico, I feel like he's the guy I think has the best case to be that guy ahead of Arch Manning just because of all the physical tools he has, and you project him into that Tennessee offense with Josh Heupel. There's a lot to like there. But yeah, I'm if you're a Texas fan, I'd be glad that Rivals kept him at number 1.
Cole, kind of staying with you. What else? I'm going because there is an Arch conversation I want to have, but I want to kind of get your thoughts on the general release of the 5-star stuff. I want to kind of get your thoughts on there, and I have something more specific that I want to go back to.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rankings right now. Obviously, Jonte jumped up to 5-star range, as we touched on, and I think Sukumel kind of mentioned on the board. If it was only up to Adam Gorney, I think we could have seen Jonte Cook as like a top 15 prospect, if not higher. He's a guy that everybody was really impressed by in Orlando. He's a guy I've been really high on since last season at DeSoto. He's been, he gets open with ease. He's a really refined route runner. He's got the speed, athletic ability. I know Alex did a really good breakdown of how he fits into the offense as well. I think he could play immediately. I don't know. Catch mentioned maybe he'll win Freshman of the Year honors in Big 12. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think he's going to be a big piece of this offense next year. And Anthony Hill's the other 5-star. You expect him to be a day 1 contributor. He looked really good. I thought at least in San Antonio. I know Sukumel and Alex are down there as well. He's got the size and everything you'd want from a day 1 kind of contributor on that defense. And then in the case of Malik Muhammad, he's a guy that really just missed the cut. I wonder how he dropped a spot, but
where did he end up, Cole? Like, this is the highest 4-star available or something?
So, yeah, he's 35, so he's just outside.
Oh, God. Well, wasn't it the top 34 that were the 5-stars?
32.
Yeah, top 32.
Oh, okay, 32. Jeez, man. He missed it by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he did drop a spot. I think he was 34 at the last update. But I don't really think, just sitting in on the meetings, I don't really think it was him dropping as much as other guys rising. So Reuben Owens and Justice Haynes, the 2 running backs, were kind of the 2 guys that got the most consideration for that 5-star that didn't get that 5-star, but Muhammad is right there. And then obviously Baxter was at 36. The final ranking, a lot of it comes from those, evaluations at the practices at the All-American Orlando and San Antonio. Centurion Perkins, signed with Ole Miss. He's a guy that kind of blew everybody away, and he moved up to 5-star range. There's a couple other guys that jumped in. So
Hey,
a lot of
Cole,
these,
is it always just 32 5-stars, or does it change every year? I'm sorry to ask. Like, I don't
no,
know
you're
what
fine.
Rivals National does.
Obviously, Sukumo's been around way longer than me, but I know at least that's been the trend for a while now, just kind of matching up with the NFL draft. Last year, I think there's 33, and only because LT Overton, he reclassified and signed with A&M from the 23 to 22 class. So there's 33, but other than that, I think there's 32. I don't know how long they've been doing that.
It used to be a little more flexible. It wasn't a firm number, but it's always been around that number, pretty close. So.
Yeah, they're trying to. At the end of the day, they're trying to. Thought process is if you're a 5-star, you're gonna be a first-round draft pick. If you're a high 4-star, second-round pick, so on and so forth. But yeah, and then another guy that kind of jumped into that super blue chip tier, as Catch likes to call it, is Ryan Niblett. I know I was really impressed with him in San Antonio. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Alex. He seemed like the fastest guy in the field, at least from what I saw. Same with Sukumo. I know you're at practice as well. He's a guy that I know we've all been high on. He's a speedster. He jumped into pull up his rankings, I think right outside the top 50. The one guy that did fall was Derek Williams, the signee out of Louisiana. From what I could gather, it was more about, he's a really good prospect. Maybe he didn't really show immediate day one impact when he was in Orlando. There's some questions if he could be a day one starter. But his overall talent, I think he's still in the top 70. So, obviously, he had Jonte moving at 5-star. Not a lot of guys dropping.
Jelani McDonald, Cole, moved up.
Yeah, Jelani,
He's where did I just see him? Okay, he's number 97 overall, moved up 107 spots.
Yeah. That's what a good week down in San Antonio will do for you.
Yeah, you remember before December, he wasn't even ranked in the top 250. I think he was right outside the top 200 in December, and then he killed it in San Antonio. I think he was the talk of everybody. I think everybody's really impressed. I know Alex kind of mentioned on the board. He went into it blind and was really impressed by Jelani. Yeah. That was my first time getting to see him in person like that as well. There's talk. I remember he was telling Sukumo maybe he was going to play linebacker at one point in time, and he was out there playing corner, guarding, defending some Ohio State 5-star wide receiver signing. So that's a guy that I'm really excited about.
Jason, let me ask you this though: we're talking about the guys who didn't make it. There's three guys that you could maybe have made an argument for. Cedric Baxter, and I know you said it's a numbers thing. Colton Vasek, maybe you could have made an argument for. Malik Muhammad probably ends up being a guy that you could make an argument for. Is there an argument to be made for any of the three of those guys to say, hey, is there one of those guys you say, that guy, I believe, deserves a 5-star, even if he doesn't have one?
Yeah, I would probably pick of those three on where I'd probably say CJ Baxter, not as unfairly to him, but unfairly to the running back position. They're getting hit harder and dropped in the rankings just because of positional kind of value, if you will. I mean, like I said, we're seeing it in the NFL draft, but Cole said it. I mean, it's so hard, man. You want to keep everybody. Listen, I think CJ Baxter's a 5-star talent. He missed the cut by 4 spots. And if you look at the last 5 stars, the guy who moved up 39 spots, number 31 ranked player, the second to last 5-star, he moved up 19 spots. There's another guy who's now finished number 19. Kedrick Falk moved up 60 spots. Jordan Hall, a defensive lineman Texas tried to recruit, finished at number 16, moved up 45 spots. Another guy moved up 39 spots. So sometimes, man, I mean, guys, it's not that those guys aren't necessarily 5-star talents, but there's only 32 of those spots, and they get pushed down a little bit. So, it's a balancing act, and fans get pissed and they gripe about it. It's impossible to make everybody happy, dude. So I don't have a problem with these rankings. I do think CJ Baxter in time will be proven to be a 5-star type talent. But I also understand the reasoning why they didn't give any running backs 5-star recognition.
Jason, do you have more of a problem with Baxter not being a 5-star, or with Arch, with these other services getting bumped down?
Boy, that's a really good question, Alex. I almost have more of a problem with Baxter not being a 5-star. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, yeah. So.
What about you, Alice? Is there any of the guys that mentioned, whether it's Baxter, Vasek, Muhammad, is there any guy that you would stand on the table for at this moment and said, you know what, that guy should have been on the list? It's always, the quote unquote snubs that are out there. Would you put those guys in that category?
I put Ruben Owens. I put Ruben Owens in that category. But I know Texas fans don't want to hear that. But like I would put him.
I don't want to hear anything about Ruben.
But I'm curious, Cole. Like, was there talk about him? About Ruben? Was there any?
He was the one guy that brought out the heated debate between all the analysts.
Doesn't surprise me.
Pulling back the curtain.
He fell 7 spots, Alex. So he actually fell out of 5-star status in this last update.
Yeah, the debate was that there's not a 5-star running back in this class. I know Nick Harris has been the guy kind of carrying the Ruben Owens bandwagon for a while now. I was on his side. I hate to say it for Texas fans, but he impressed me, just on film. And then in San Antonio, seems like the kind of guy that could be a 3-down back. Obviously, Devon Achane is going to be, you would think, a high second-round pick, somewhere in that second round, if I were to guess. And I think Ruben Owens is probably a better prospect than him. He's got the speed, got the 3-down ability. So, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because he was the one guy that kind of there are two sides. There's one side that he should be a 5-star, and there's another side that he should not be. And obviously, he just missed the cut. But, yeah, he was probably the guy that brought out the most arguments and all of that. But, yeah, the one guy that I was kind of standing on the table for was Malik Muhammad. I think and I've been saying all season, I think he's the best corner in the state. His athletic ability is really impressive. He's got the length. I think he has everything you can, if you're designing a corner to be a first-round pick, I think he would fit that bill. Obviously, we'll see how his college career goes, but I'm really high on Malik Muhammad.
Hey, Cole. I'm sorry, Anwar. I'm not sure. I won't try to cut you off. Cole, whenever you guys I'm just curious how this process works. Do you guys all get on a Zoom, like all the analysts from all over the country, and just hash this thing out? And how long does that take? Like, are you on there for hours, or you take breaks, or how does that go?
Yeah, it's like a Zoom, Google Meets. You all join it. Starts at 8 a.m. in the morning and just goes on for the rest of the day, pretty much. It just depends on, obviously it's a final update, so you want to get everything kind of hammered down. But there wasn't too much change, I would say, from the All-American games in December. You did that December update. So it's not like you're building an entire 250 or everything like that. But, yeah, it takes hours. I mean, it goes – you might get a lunch break, but you're starting in the morning and it goes until the afternoon. And then so this time we did it on Thursday of 1 week, a couple weeks ago, and we got the 250 – or we got the positional rankings down, everything like that. And then we came back Friday and kind of wrapped everything up in a bow and, made sure things were finalized. But, yeah, it could be an all-day process. So, everybody has their own opinions and standing on the table for who you have seen and versus, if a guy from California hasn't seen, Anthony Hill and maybe they got to see him at the All-American game. Everybody gets their own opinions and gets their own debates. And it's pretty interesting to see who you're going to stand on the table for. But, yeah, it's an all-day thing.
Was there much discussion about Vasek at all, Cole, or was he just always going to be on the outside of the bubble? Was there anybody that was adamant? You don't have to name names, but was anyone adamant? Was it discussed at all?
To be honest, not too much for 5-star, just because I think there was 27, 26 5-stars maybe in December. So you're only working with 5 or 6 more. Obviously, everybody's really high on him. He's one of the highest 4-stars in the country for a good reason. I think if I had to say it, but maybe if the analysts did get to see him in Orlando or San Antonio for those All-American games, I think he'd have a starter case, just, get to see him in person and practice, everything like that. But no, I'd say Malik Muhammad, all the Texas commits, I'd say he was the one that got the most consideration.
If you're kind of in that 50-ish range where Vasek, he's 45, but you've got to go to one of these All-American games and just put on a show, right, to make that kind of jump to get up in the top 30 range. And I'm not sure he couldn't have done it, but he just didn't have the opportunity. Yeah,
it shouldn't be the end all be all, but I mean, that's what it matters. If you look at all the guys who get a 5-star range, like Sukamal mentioned, all of those guys that jumped in were in Orlando or in San Antonio, just because, like I said, people from Florida who have never seen, Colin Bostic play. They get to see how he wins on one-on-one reps against quality competition. You know, it's kind of like Alex at the Senior Bowl. You get to see how guys match up against other competition.
And it's also like, okay, now I've seen it with my own two eyes. Now I know what, I know that at the very least this isn't going to swindle me because I've seen it with my own two eyes. It couldn't be just something that weird that came through on film that wasn't real life. I've seen it and I can trust my own eyeballs. And I think a little bit of that kind of human psychology goes into it as well.
Jason, I'm going to do my best not to hit the nuclear detonator button here. So if I talk for a second and it's reminiscent of Catch, talking for a long period of time, just understand I'm tap dancing and I don't want to piss off Longhorn fans. Okay. So I'll start with the disclaimer. Okay.
That's a good one.
I don't like that you're throwing it to me. Whatever you're going to talk about.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna pull it and then just hand it to you. Okay. I'll start with the disclaimer. OU sucks, right? Because it's a Texas Longhorn Football Channel. So I'll start with OU sucks. Everyone feel free to say OU sucks in the chat. Go for it. Okay. That being said, OU finishes with 3 5-stars in this class. They also finished right. They're currently ranked 5th. Texas is ranked 3rd in the Rivals ranking. OU is ranked 5th in the Rivals ranking. Did OU kind of keep pace with Texas as relates to recruiting in this 2023 class? Also, because you got to remember, they got a 5-star quarterback as well. They got Jackson Arnold, who's signed there. Obviously, Texas has Arch Manning, but, I'm guessing in the world of 5-stars, we're not talking about a large degree of separation between the two. I'm just curious, in your opinion, did OU did they keep pace with Texas in 2023?
The short answer is they did, and I'm shocked. I mean, we think back to where Oklahoma was in October, right, when we were all ready to dig a hole for Brent Venables. But yeah, they closed really well. Like you said, 3 5-stars, and winning that Peyton Bowen saga that just was all over the place was huge for them. They've done, I don't even have, I can't off the top of my head, but I know they've done pretty well in the portal too with some portal takes. So yeah, they have, I think, held serve with Texas. Obviously Texas class is ranked higher for a reason, but you said it, Elmer. They got 3 5-star players. They got a couple, or at least one that barely missed out on 5-star status. So, listen, I get it. Our listeners, our viewers don't want to hear it, but they did a really good job of assembling that class when they had some real adversity to battle through. Can they do it year after year? I don't know. We'll see, but they certainly finished much stronger and much better than I thought they would. Certainly in October. In October, I remember talking to our Oklahoma guys. I was like, oh my gosh, is Venables going to make it through year one? Is he going to be canned after year one? But even, November into December, they probably finished with a much better class and out of guest, even going back to that early signing period in December. So to answer your question, yeah, Texas did a fantastic job, but listen, you can't bury your head in the sand. Oklahoma recruited a really good class as well.
Okay. I will not ask anyone to follow up for this because I realize if I add follow up on this, it will go down the rails. So I just wanted to ask that, get that opinion on there. We'll, be interested. At least, both of these teams are preparing themselves to enter the SEC, and both of them are recruiting strongly. Yes, OU sucks. And then we can obviously we'll end it like that and we'll move on. And let's move on to maybe a little bit of Junior Day that happened. I know, guys, you guys have did your podcast and a little bit to that effect. And I don't know necessarily want you guys to repeat everything. But Cole, I will ask, just for those who haven't had a chance to check it out yet, or we'll go back and check it out some point.
We haven't recorded it yet, Omar.
You haven't recorded yet. Okay, well, give us some spoilers of what you got. We've moved so many things around.
Some teasers. Come on, tease us.
Yeah, tell us what you guys. Give us some initial thoughts of Junior Day and what happened, success and not success. I'm kind of curious. Cole, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it was a pretty eventful day, and I think it was really star-studded, especially at running back. I think there's a lot of blue chip running backs. Jarrett Gibson was there, #1 running back in the country. Taylor Tatum was there, another really good running back at Longview. Just really stacked and impressive group of visitors. A lot of guys from out of state as well. There's some guys from around the state of Texas, but it was, I know me and Sigma were talking. There's some guys from California that made it in, guys from Florida, defensive lineman from Mississippi. We have an article up right now on Orangebloods. This really impressive group of visitors. Not a lot of action as far as, there's a few offers they were throwing out, but not a ton of offers and no commitments either. But just really big and impressive junior day. A lot of visitors, like I mentioned. I think they laid the groundwork for a really good class in 2024. And moving forward, there are a lot of underclassmen in 2025, 2026 as well.
What about you, Jason? You were out there as well. So give me some of your initial thoughts with that one.
It was probably the best group of talent I can ever remember covering at a junior day event, Anwar. And I say I've been covering these things for 20 plus years. I'd have to really think about that. I don't think I'm sticking my neck out too far to say that. Like Cole said, not only did you have some really good in-state players, but you had players from Florida and California and Mississippi. I'm talking elite top 50 type players. I mean, Jarrett Gibson, the number one running back in the country, comes in from Florida. There were so many guys there, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of a cluster F on where the way these things are. They're really well run, so don't misinterpret that. But the way it ends in terms of us media, we never know where we're going to be able to recruit, where we're going to be able to interview these guys. It changes from time to time. They take them out different doors. We try to interview them here where they're coming out, and they say, nope, get away, you can't do it. So we ended up they had the recruits in their families park in the LBJ parking lot. Now, mind you, I had seen the itinerary earlier in the week, and they told them to park at some church parking lot. So even that changed. So at the end of it, nobody's coming out. And so we ended up going.
What church do you park at to go to junior day?
I don't know, dude. I got it on my phone. Saint something or other, Alex. But now, and they're shuttling them, to be clear. They have them parked in these lots. They have shuttles to take them. But so we thought, okay, we'll just go to the LBJ parking lot and we'll grab guys there. And we did. But, I mean, they're bringing these big-ass vans of people. I mean, shuttles. They're not vans, they're shuttles. So there were so many guys there, and we got a lot of interviews, right? Cole and I did. But there are so many guys there. We've still got a lot of guys we need to call this week to follow up with that we weren't able to get. But Cole mentioned the running back room, and it was star-studded talent at the running back room. A lot of defensive linemen there. I mean, just really an impressive turnout. And you kind of hear this from pretty much every time you talk to someone at a junior day, but every recruit we talked to, every parent we talked to was like, whoa, this was really impressive, man. The facilities were great. The coaches were relatable. There was probably, I didn't keep count, Cole, maybe 5 or 6 new offers, not a ton, because there were so many offers already on the table before this junior day. No commitments, but I didn't expect any commitments at the junior day. I think I said it last week. This is more just about kind of building that foundation. I think Texas did a tremendous job. 2024 class, even 2025 and some 2026s. So really a lot to cover there, and just Texas kind of knocked it out of the park.
Let's do the super chat, and then Jason, I got a follow-up question for you. Chris wrote in his super chat. Thank you, Chris. Yes, if you want to get a question in right away, the super chat is the easiest way to do it. How does recruiting back-to-back number one running backs differ from back-to-back number one QBs?
It's a lot.
I mean, I was
gonna say, Alex, can you tackle that?
I mean, it's a world of difference. It's like, I mean, I could say why in a million ways. I'm sure Jason could say why in a million ways. I would say, for one, it's clearly, it's probably better for your football program to land back-to-back number one quarterbacks. But with that being said, that comes with a whole. I mean, that's like mo money, mo problems kind of thing. Right? It's like you get back-to-back number one quarterbacks. The thing about getting back-to-back number one running backs is that 2 running backs can play, right? They can both play. 2 quarterbacks can't, right? So I mean, if you got, you could have a running back rotation with these guys, and basically in any college running back at this point is not going to be sold like, hey man, you're going to come to our school. We're going to put that ball in your belly. We're going to give you 30 attempts a game, and we're going to run the wheels off you before you get to the NFL. That's not a recruiting pitch that they get these days. They're going to say, we use a specialized weapon. We're going to use your attributes to their fullest extent. You know, we have a good committee you can be a part of, stuff like that. And we're certainly going to feature you. Look at what we've done with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so that are all in the league, right? But we managed to keep the tread off their tires in college. That's the pitch that they get. So you get back-to-back number one running backs. It feels like a little bit more of a possible thing to do. Then if you get back-to-back number one quarterbacks, it just feels like you get one quarterback and then one quarterback that's going to go to the portal. But during the time that you have the two there, the chances of you hitting on one of them is probably, I mean, clearly it's going to be better than just bringing in one number one quarterback and then just having to depend on him to actually hit. If you bring in two, there's a good chance that one will hit, but once that one hits, like it's a 100% certainty the other one would go to the portal. I would think that this is all a new time for this stuff, so I'd be interested to hear what Jason has to say, but that's sort of the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, running backs, you said it, Alex, they no longer want to be, I don't say they want to be the guy, but they don't want 30 carries a game. And they're okay coming in as part of a 2, sometimes 3-man group, even in the same class sometimes. Quarterbacks, that's not the same. You got one ball for the quarterback. And listen, getting the number one quarterback in back-to-back years is tough enough. But when one of those guys' name is Arch Manning, it's damn near impossible. So, you know, Texas, you know, can certainly get Jarrett Gibson. The Longhorns are in his top 3 is what his dad told me. So it's different. You know, I remember the days when USC used to, under Pete Carroll, they were the first ones. They would stack these running backs. They'd have like 5-star running backs on their roster. And usually 2 or 3 would rise up to the cream of the crop. So it's a hell of a lot easier in short to get back-to-back number one running backs. You know, C.J. Baxter, is he the number one running back in the country? That's debatable. He wasn't in Rivals. He missed it by 2 spots, so he may as well have been. But it's a lot easier to get the number one running back in back-to-back classes than it is quarterback. It's almost impossible in today's day and age to get the number one quarterback. And I'll give you an example. I mean, Julian Sayin, I think I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I think he is the number one quarterback in the 2024 class. He's a guy that probably would have been at Texas if Arch Manning didn't commit to Texas, didn't sign with Texas. As soon as Arch committed to Texas, Julian Sayin's like, yeah, I'm out. I'm off the board. So it's damn near impossible to get the top-ranked player at the quarterback position 2 years in a row.
So, Jason, going back to one of the things I wanted to follow up with you, who are the top guys at Junior Day? Give me the names, the sexy names of, you know, some of the elite talent that was out there. You know, for those who follow recruiting, but may not.
I've got my list pulled up in front of me, Anwar. It's a pretty long list, but we mentioned Jarrett Gibson. He's the number one running back in the country. Taylor Tatum's a really talented running back out of Longview. Just Brian Jackson. Hunter Modden's a Texas commitment that was in town. You know, maybe not the highest ranked, but it was good for Texas to get him back in on campus. Some pretty good offensive linemen. Ori Williams is a guy Texas has been recruiting for a while at San Marcos. Michael Ewing out of Copperas Cove is a Rivals 250 member. Boy, just from a physical perspective, he sure looks a hell of a lot like a high top 50 type prospect to me, not just a Rivals 250. Blake Frazier's a young man from Vandergrift, offensive lineman who got an offer. Dante Robinson is a defensive lineman out of Orlando. Anwar, he's top 50 in the nation, I believe. He was in town. King Joseph Edwards, a defensive lineman.
King Joseph
Edwards. Yeah, dude. Great kid, great personality, great mom too. Landon Rink's a 2025 kid. He's top 50 in the country. His dad, Shane Rink, played at Texas. That one looks pretty good for Texas. Peyton Pierce, a Rivals 100 linebacker. Dylan Williams did not make it in. Cole, you and I talked about that, but Dylan Williams was a linebacker out of Cali that was supposed to come in. He didn't come in. Kobe Black, the number one cornerback in the state, one of the best cornerbacks in the country. He's a Rivals 100 member. He was in Texas commitment. Jaden Allen, a Rivals 100 member, was in. So again, man, I'm reading about 10% of this list. I could just go on and on and on. It was almost overwhelming, the number, especially when you factor in the out-of-state guys. I mean, Texas did such a good job of getting some of these out-of-state guys, top national out-of-state guys. There were a lot of guys from Louisiana that came in too that I didn't even touch on. So really, I mean, I'm just throwing out a lot of names, and I could keep going on more. It was just a really talented group.
So, Cole, let me ask you this. When I looked at the junior day, and I think my math was correct, Texas offered 5 guys on junior day. All 5 were linemen, if I'm, offensive and defensive side of the board. So there was 5 guys who got new offers while they were there. I asked Ketch about it, and Ketch downplayed it, said those guys aren't really the elite of the elite as far as he was concerned. But the offers did go out, but a lot of those guys didn't really have a Rivals ranking or profile or something to that effect. What did you make of the offers that went out on Saturday? I know you reported a lot of them.
Yeah, for sure. If there's anything we've kind of learned about Kyle Flood here at Texas, is he's not really looking at recruiting rankings when he's throwing out these offers. Obviously, that 2022 class was star-studded with DJ Campbell and NATO and Kelvin Banks kind of, leading the way. But this past class wasn't, you had Jaden Chapman, he's a Rivals 250 guy. But outside of that, there's not really high-rated guys in the 2023 class. He's, Kyle Flood identifies these massive humans, really. I mean, they're all, I think, Ori Williams is like 6'8". Can't remember how much he weighs, but 6'8", probably around 300. Bennett Warren's a guy that picked up that offer. One of those offensive linemen picked up an offer on Saturday. He's about the same size. So I think it was more about just Kyle Flood getting those guys in, seeing how big they are in person. Seeing, getting them in the weight room, or not even the weight room, just seeing them up close and eyeing them, seeing what their size profile is, and I think he really wants those guys in his building. He wants big dudes. He's not looking at obviously you want 5-star linemen, don't get me wrong. And Michael Ewing, the Super Bowl mention, is a highly rated guy with Alabama and LSU offers. I think it was more about Kyle Flood doing his evaluations, getting those guys on campus, and then extending an offer.
What's the next big event, Cole, for recruiting event is concerned? Because I got a question that's unrelated to Jason, but what's the next bigger recruiting event?
Ooh, that's probably a question for Sukuma, at least on campus.
Not much. Well, you got dead period starts February, or I'm sorry, like whatever, the weekend before February 1st. National Signing Day 2 is February 1, which isn't going to be a big recruiting event. Then the next thing, honestly, because the whole month of February, dead period, it would be in March. We'll have like a bunch of camps, Under Armour camps, those types of things.
7-on-7 tournaments.
7-on-7, yeah.
So dude, hold on, wait. I see in the chat, I see Antoine Cobb. I wonder if that's the Antoine Cobb, like the old running back. Antoine Cobb, if that's you, man, let us know in the chat. Antoine Cobb, wasn't he a running back in am I going crazy? Around 2009, something like that.
I'm trying to pull up his profile. I'm terrible about remembering that's where we need to catch. 2006. Yeah, the fluid.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I wonder if that is him.
I would like to know if that's him, man. But that's super cool.
That's how long I've been doing this. I've covered Antoine back 17 years.
Your old ass.
Yeah, man. That's it. All right, man.
All right.
Cool, man. We got Antoine Cobb in the chat. Nice, man. All right.
Good eye there, Alex. Good eye. I'm curious about something, Jason. So Sarkisian gets in year one, and for the most part, he was only going to have one quarterback in the class. You got Malik Murphy, but then the Quinn Ewers thing kind of falls from the sky, and it's a situation where you can't say no. So you end up getting kind of 2 QBs that kind of enter, in that year. Not necessarily the same recruiting class, but that year. Then last year or 2023, you get Arch, you get him committed, and that's it. Like, you shut it down. No need to ruffle any feathers. You Arch is your guy. That's it. But what about in 2024. They have the commitment from Trey Owens at this moment. Are we at a point where you say to, okay, if you're Sarkisian, you probably need to bring in two, because you don't have a high 5-star that you're necessarily worried that, oh my gosh, like I've got, you still want to recruit and be fair, but do you tell Trey, or has he been told, like, hey, there'll be other quarterbacks in this class? Do they need to get another guy just because, as Alice is pointing out, the era of the transfer portal? I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
I have not asked Trey that question. That's a good question that I need to remember to ask him. What have they told you about their quarterback numbers? I just kind of assumed Anwar he would probably be the only one. It's going to be hard to bring in one guy behind Arch Manning, much less two. Now, they did have Deuce Adams on campus this weekend. He's a kind of a dual threat guy. He's the son of former Longhorn great Hall of Honor member Mike Adams, who Mike and I got a good laugh. He played back. He came in, I think it was my sophomore year. So most of my college years were sitting in the stands watching him play, and he and I had a couple funny laughs about some 6th Street stories that I'll save for later. But I think Trey Owens will probably be the only quarterback in this class, barring they take maybe an athletic type quarterback who can do some different things, because there aren't a lot of guys who are willing to come in the year after Arch Manning and the year after Quinn Ewers. Now, Trey, to his credit, he's not a 5-star guy. He's a 3-star guy, but he put up big numbers. He's a really good pocket passer. He can run when he needs to. And when he committed, it was actually the night before he committed, he and I were talking, and I asked him, I said, hey, man, let's just kind of, point out the obvious. I said, a lot of guys wouldn't come in right behind Arch Manning. And he goes, man, I'm not worried about that. He goes, I'm coming in. I'm going to try to take the job from him. And, at the very least, I'm going to push him, and it's going to make me better and make him better. This is a guy that just wants to be a Texas Longhorn. He's probably not the guy that if he comes in and Arch Manning takes the job, and I don't think Trey's the type that's going to hit the transfer portal right away. That's the kind of guy Texas needed in this class, a guy that can just, come in and provide some depth, maybe an insurance policy. I hate to use that term because who knows? Trey Owens might wind up being Colt McCoy. Okay,
yeah.
Listen, I'm not selling the kid short. He's very confident. He's got a really good arm, good head for the game. But you're not going to get one of these high-profile, hot-shot guys who thinks he has to be the man. That wasn't the quarterback they were going to get this year. I think Trey is the perfect guy they took this year in terms of the mental makeup, in terms of the competitive mindset, the confidence, and the talent. And he's an in-state kid who wants to be a Longhorn. I think it's perfect. I think he'll be the only quarterback. To answer your question directly, I don't know that he's been told that. That's a really good question that I need to remember to ask him next time I talk to him.
Alice, what were you thinking when he said the Colt McCoy comparison?
Well, I just said that. It's just a lot of the a quarterback sometimes is a crapshoot, man, and they sometimes pop out from places that you just weren't expecting it. And like the first guy that came to my head was, of course, Colt. You got to kind of see what a guy like Vince had done, but then also I get it all mixed. Which quarterback did he come into the same class as? Jason, was that Jevin Sneed?
Who's that? Colt,
yeah. Was that
Sneed was a year behind him. Sneed was a year behind him.
Okay, so there. And
everybody thought Sneed was going to be the guy, and yeah.
Colt was always a little bit overlooked and stuff like that, and like so. He was the first guy that came to my head whenever Jason said, like, and who knows what can happen with a guy like this. You get these guys in, and sometimes they can be, different than what people expected. But that was kind of all I was saying.
No, I was just kidding. Like I said, no, it makes all the sense in the world. Alice, I want to ask you one more question, one more topic, and then we'll go ahead and start to get into some parting shots here. I've been able to hear just about everybody else's opinions. Ketch and I have talked about it. There's shows on Friday on A.D. Mitchell, the addition of the Georgia wide receiver. I haven't heard from you. You're the only person that we haven't really heard from as far as your thoughts on that. So I'm kind of curious. The news breaks on Friday. I'm sure you've had a chance to do some sort of at least preliminary analysis on A.D. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on him as a receiver from what you know at this moment, and his potential impact in the upcoming season.
Well, man, I think he was set to break out for sure this year. If you just look at the first game this season. I believe it was versus Oregon? We like five catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown in that game. And that was after George Pickens had said at the pro day last year, the Georgia pro day last year, that AD is next man up. Like he's the next one to take over as the total alpha, right? As a wide receiver. Hearing that from George Pickens, to me means a lot. Seeing the kind of prospect he was and watching his tape means a lot. I did write about him today. So if you want to go read about it over on Orangebloods, mainly just I wanted to see what Pro Football Focus had to say about him, because I always complain about Pro Football Focus and everything like that. But there was the question about on the board about whether the drops were like true for him. And one thing that I will look at Pro Football Focus regarding is just like alignment, that just objective data. I think that's what, if you talk to NFL scouts, they say the grades that they give are bullshit, right? But what they do see is they say, like, well, he lined up in the slot 59% of the time. It's like, all right, well, I don't have to go chart that for myself. That's something that you could put a toddler in a room and have him chart those kinds of things. And so I was just kind of looking at some of the charting data for him, and of course PFF, who had Jake Majors and Cole Hudson graded miles ahead of Hayden Conner as a run blocker this year. So it goes to show you, whoever is grading these people. And that's another thing about PFF. Man, I wish somebody would put their name on it. I wish somebody would. I wish it wasn't just like the man behind the curtain is just like he could fairy dust and shit. But regardless, so his receiving grade for 2021, which was a year he didn't quite break out, but let's see, he had as far as his market share, it was 29 receptions was an 11% team market share, 426 yards was an 11.2% team market share, 4 receiving touchdowns was a 10.3% team market share. So that's not a breakout season, because the average of those 3 market shares is just over 10%, right? To be considered a breakout season, we need 20% of those particular metrics. But it looked like he was probably heading to a sophomore year breakout. And a sophomore year breakout at age like 19 and a half, something like that, that puts you at like a DK Metcalf kind of breakout age right there, 19.5, 19.7. That's his 75th percentile breakout age, which is super, super, super good. Of course, he got hurt this year, right? So you have the stuff with the projection of the low breakout age that didn't occur, but it likely would have occurred if he wouldn't have hurt his ankle in that second game. You have the George Pickens stuff. You have the fact that he just looks super good. But then PFF has him graded terribly. In 2021 as a freshman, number 275 out of 415 college football qualifiers. Some interesting yards after catch per reception, 2.1. That's terrible. The average among all FBS receivers of 2021 was 5.9 yards after catch. So PFF has him graded as just terrible yards after catch guy. The one thing that looked pretty good was the yards per route run at 1.72. That's probably the most predictive metric that we have. And in making weekly projections for NFL players and creating player props and stuff like that, yards per route run is probably the most powerful and important tool that we have. And it's also pretty good for prospecting. If you look at the average among all 2021 FBS qualifiers, and that it was 1.4. So 1.72 versus 1.4, that's kind of like a ray of hope in his PFF profile. But man, PFF, they just, and then the drops too. So 5 drops they have him in the 2021 season. That's a 17.2% drop rate. That was tied for 15th worst among the 415 qualifiers in FBS. So Pro Football Focus thinks that, there's reasons for concern with AD Mitchell. Me personally, I think PFF is largely cockamamie, and I'll listen to George Pickens. I'll believe my own eyes. I'll look at what I projected that young breakout age to be, right? 75th percentile breakout age. I'll just look at AD Mitchell and continue to think that he's the stud. But I do think, and kind of digging in a little bit to that PFF stuff, the one thing that we can objectively say is a 3.9% slot rate. I've seen people talk in the chat about, are we going to get a Isaiah Nayer, Xavier Worthy, AD Mitchell 3 receiver set? And I just don't see that happening, because I don't see who moves into the slot. Like AD Mitchell was one of he played in the slot less than almost any wide receiver in college football in 2021. And the other thing is, I mean, people talk about the drops. I think that a drop is somewhat subjective, right? But it's not like giving a grade on a guy for a whole season and saying like this is the magical grade, and I'm not going to tell you who I am or how I came up with it, but here's his grade, right? At least it's like, all right, that's the drop right there. That's one drop. There's another drop. That's two. The fact that there has the high drop rate, I would say like there's probably some signal there to that, and probably something that we'll keep an eye on. It's obviously a narrative for a reason. I don't think it's something that can be not be fixed, and that's kind of my book on him. Maybe a small concern about the drops, the obvious noting of the PFF profile being bad, but some of the analytics that I like to look at, and some of the people who all trust to listen to, who've been around him every single day, who are some of the best in the world at it, like George Pickens. I think I'll take that to the bank first.
So simplify for us. Does he make this offense better? Do you think in this upcoming season, does this become more explosive, more dynamic? Is it tad bit better? Like, do you see? You know what I'm saying? Like,
dude, he makes it big. Like he's a game breaking player. I mean, I think he's a really good player. So I think obviously he does, and I think it also takes a little bit of pressure off of Jonte Cook, who if there wasn't going to be no Isaiah Nair for this spring, Jonte Cook wasn't going to have to come in and maybe start. You know, I think it takes away a little bit of runway from Jonte Cook that I was sort of excited to see him maybe thrust into this role just because I was so impressed with him as a prospect. And I don't think this necessarily negates, any opportunity that Jonte Cook's going to have this year to come in and compete and come in and play. But I think it gives you some buffer. It gives you, but on top of just being buffer and insurance and an extra body, it's like, this is a good player. This guy was going to be the number one wide receiver for the team that ended up being the dominant national champions. Like he was poised to be the number one guy. He came in his first game and he was the number one guy. So it's like, I mean, what's not to get excited about?
All right, let's do the super chat. We got one more. We got a super chat that I want to make sure we get to, and then we will get into our final thoughts, our parting shots, which means you guys have a couple of minutes to start thinking about something, because I don't want anyone to say I've got nothing. We do this every week. Every week, you got to have something. All right, super chat from RC7842. Do you view Fenner as an upgrade over Gilbert? Cole, Jason, any one of you want to kind of grab that as far as, the new hire that he's talking about as a high school person? For those that didn't know, Jamal Fenner was hired as director of high school relations for replacing Chris Gilbert. Fenner is an Austin guy. He's been a high school coach here, an AD as well. Had a lot of success, obviously, as a head coach over at LBJ. Looking at here right now, 49-13 record, 3 straight district titles, at least 8 wins every year, 29-3 in the postseason. So Gilbert, as you guys know, was a key recruiting component, especially in key areas of the state. Your thoughts, Jason, and just even if it's just vague. Is he an upgrade over Gilbert is the question.
Fenner's success at LBJ is pretty remarkable. He was the only coach in AASD in almost 50 years to take a team to a state championship game. He took him to the semifinals the year before that. I think he can be really good. People rave about his character and just, he's respected in Central Texas, and he's a fun guy to be around, and he's very relatable. All that being said, Chris Gilbert, I don't know. Gilbert's a tough act to follow, especially the fact that he was in DFW, where it's such a deep recruiting pool. I don't think I'd call him an upgrade. I probably would lean towards Gilbert in that department. I hate saying that because Fenner is kind of a victim, but if he was in Houston or DFW, it might be a little bit different. Now, Texas still may add 1 or 2 people maybe from the DFW area or Houston. So, we'll see what happens there. But no, I don't know that I'd call him an upgrade over Chris Gilbert. That was a pretty big loss in losing Chris Gilbert.
What about you, Cole? You always have boots on the ground. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of my understanding it's going to be, 2 different roles as well. It's not like the apples to apples. But, yeah, it's going to be hard to replace Chris Gilbert in Dallas with one person, especially somebody that's not from the area, nothing against Finner at all. He could be a really good hire. But just talking about the Dallas area, especially, the Duncanville, South Oak Cliffs, DeSoto's of the world. Chris Gilbert did an amazing job. Lancaster as well. He did an amazing job up there. So that's something that you can't really call it an upgrade because you're losing a guy that had all those connections, all the relationships up there. But that doesn't mean Finner can't be a good hire by itself. But just in that regard, it's kind of hard to call that an upgrade.
All right, let's go ahead and start to wrap it up. We've been going about just over an hour here. So, Jason, I will come to you first for a parting shot. What is something that's kind of been on your mind, how you would like to close it out?
Pretty easy one for me, Anwar. It was probably 2 months ago when I told you all about my son going to Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, he graduated in December and put in all this work and literally worked and saved a bunch of money. He leaves on Monday, dude. He gets on a plane on Monday out of Houston. So we've been getting all his things in order and just helping him getting ready to go. And my wife and I are going to drive down to Houston on Sunday. He doesn't fly out till Monday at like midnight. It's crazy, but
oh wow.
Then actually Monday he wants to go tour the University of Houston campus. We're going to do that. Put him on a plane Monday night and ship him off to Japan for 3 months, dude. And it's weird. It's like, I think I told Cole this. Maybe I told Cole this the other day. I was like, we probably all have pets or had pets at some point in our life. And it's like, that pet's getting older and like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put my pet down in a week or two. And you kind of have that pit in your stomach, just knowing it's coming. I keep visualizing my son walking through the security checkpoint at the airport. I'm like, oh my God, I can't get to him anymore. It's like, I know he'll be fine and he'll thrive, but reality is really sinking in, man. So we've got him for about 5 more days or whatever it is. And then he gets on a plane over Kyoto, Japan. And they actually seriously, 15 minutes before we came on the air, they sent an email and it's got the information for the host family that he's going to be staying with. We just found it out literally before we came on the air. It's got the parents' names and they have a 1-year-old son. So I was like, I told my son, you better get used to holding babies. But the wife has an Instagram account that the dad doesn't. So I was stalking the wife. I'm like, ooh, Zachary, you got lucky, man, because she's like 30 years old and she's a pretty looking woman. So I'm like, you don't go over there and get yourself in trouble, mister. But and he's super excited. Y'all have heard me tell you he's worked his butt off for this, man. I mean, the work he's put into this at such a young age is unlike anything I would have done at his age. I was just effing around, partying, drinking, chasing women or whatever. So he's super committed. He's got a plan. He'll come back in late April, and then he's going to go to college in the fall over here somewhere. We're not exactly sure where yet, but somewhere hopefully in the state of Texas. But, man, super proud of my son Zachary and just going to miss him. And he leaves on Monday, dude, so it's really starting to get
That is absolutely crazy. Jason, what if he goes over there and falls in love with him? Like, what if he's just like, this is home?
Yes, and everybody we've talked to who's been there is like, oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. You're not, and he makes these jokes because he knows it drives my wife and I crazier. It's like, God, I may never come home. Y'all may never see me. We're like, shut up, dude. I will come over there and kidnap you and bring you home. But listen, his plan, again, man, he's got it all planned out, and we'll see. He's 18, but he's had this plan laid out for a couple of years, and he's stuck to it. But, I mean, he does not want to live in the U.S., and he'll come back and go to college, and he wants to live abroad and travel and do those things, and, I'm supportive of it. I hate it, but I tell my wife, the world's a smaller place now than it was when I was a teenager and on where you were. Now you got Zoom calls and everything else. I mean, hell, they're about to have these planes that can get you to Tokyo in a few hours or something ridiculous like that. So, we'll be able to stay in communication and, won't be the same. We'll be able to give him a hug, but we'll be able to, have some conversations and see his face and maybe experience a little bit of what he's experienced. Unlike when you and I were growing up, Palmer was like sending telegrams or whatever back then. But,
write letters. had to literally write a letter and mail it away.
They get it 2 weeks later. So, but to answer your question, I'm not expecting that. I'm fully expecting him to come home in April because only has a 3-month visa. So he has to come home. Now, might he want to turn around and go right back? I hope not, but wouldn't be the.
It all depends on what her name is. It all depends on what her name is, and if he says he's going back, he met the love of his life over there. I don't want to press you anymore. Congratulations, man! Congratulations. That sounds like a real fun time. You guys should be proud. Alex, when you were touring, did you guys ever go over to Japan?
No, man. The farthest, like I used to do the VH1 best cruise ever and the rock boat. That would go down to Mexico. And then we also had when we were touring once with this band One Republic, we did part of our tour up in Canada. But we did
One Republic?
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Yeah. This dude Ryan Tedder and his band. He's a cool dude. Mm-hmm. Yep. But so yeah, Canada, Mexico, man, is the only international stuff that I'd ever done, man.
But the band you guys are putting the band back together in 2023, right? You were teasing towards that last year, and then you started laughing, and then you stopped talking about it.
No, we were talking about playing a fundraiser for our lead singer's charity thing that he's doing, but I don't know much about that, man. Plans are tentatively in the works, but I don't.
All right, Alex, what's your parting shot though?
Let's see. Do you know what I just saw, man? It's on the PFWA email. I can't believe I forgot to vote this year, but I forgot to vote for the Rookie of the Year and for the the all NFL teams and stuff. But hey, how about this? Cameron Dicker makes the all rookie team for the NFL as place kicker. Now I don't know if there are any other place kickers that played, but still, I mean it's Cameron Dicker for the Chargers made the all NFL team. So, and that reminds me, so next week I'll be at the Senior Bowl, and I'll be excited to go there and see Overshone and go see Roshan Johnson and some of these other guys that are kind of on the radar for Texas fans. Guys like Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State's going to be there, Eric Gray from OU. Being able to talk to those guys and kind of catch up. It'll be cool. See what kind of information I can get from scouts and other people about what they think about the Texas program, where it's headed and stuff right now. Just talking about Dicker, he was there just last year. I remember having a kind of cool conversation with him. So next week I won't be on the Modcast. I'll be there doing that. I will guarantee you that Ketch will send me an invitation to join the Modcast. And he might even text me and say, like, you missed the Modcast, just like he did last time.
Well, you better be ready to saddle up next week, because it sounds like Alex and I will both be out. I'll be driving back from Houston.
So I'll make sure to make a note in Slack and everything like that, but I will still get sent the invitation to join as I always do, no matter where I'm traveling. So yeah, man, I'll be back the week after and hopefully have some news and insight from that. But I'll at least get up, I'll at least get up a column next week, maybe two. Or maybe sometimes they just have me put it in the war room. We'll figure it out next week what we're doing for content from there. But I'll try to gather as much kind of content as it relates to the Longhorns as I can, and keep you guys up to date over on the message boards at Orangebloods.
Cole, what do you got, my man?
Yeah, I'll definitely be ready to sit in for both of y'all next week with Ketch. But yeah,
it's gonna be slim pickings if Ketch ain't here. It's gonna be you and I having a fireside chat, Cole.
Pretty much. But no, I don't have anything too crazy. But yeah. So obviously the junior day was obviously loaded. One of the guys that we had on campus, the Texas had on campus, I could say, was Jeffrey Rush out of Mississippi. I have a story on him on Orangebloods right now if you want to check that out. But I bring him up because if people don't know watching this, my dad's from Mississippi. I went to Mississippi State and I worked in their football program and everything like that. So I have a lot of I know a lot of people in Mississippi. I know the area pretty well. But anyways, Jeffrey Rush, he's from the exact same city and the exact same high school that my dad went to and graduated from. My dad went to high school with Terrell Buckley, funny enough, down near the coast in Mississippi, Pascagoula High School. So anyways, I caught up with Jeffrey and talked to him afterwards, after the junior day. Kind of, did the interview with him, got all the content and everything like that. But afterwards, I told him that my dad's from Pascagoula. My grandma still lives down there. My uncle still lives down there as well. And look on his face, he thought I was lying because, Pascagoula, Mississippi isn't exactly a hub that people are traveling to or people are from. And no, it was cool. His family drove 9 hours to Texas. So I got to pick his mind and all of that. Told him about some places in Pascagoula, and he thought he was, really cool dude. And, it's just funny in a small world that, he's a big time recruit going out to Texas of all places. And it was cool to catch up with him and, kind of talk to his family and all of that.
Well, that sounds really cool. So I'm trying to look up something. I want to make sure I have this correct. So my parting shot will be kind of a shot. Jason, you might be the only person that gets this reference I'm going to give, but I'm giving a shout out to Bill Castle, the Lakeland, Florida football coach, who just announced he was, by the way, coach when I went to high school there. Just announced he's retiring after 52 seasons after school, 47 as the head coach. He compiled now check out this record here: 473 wins, 98 losses, 8 state titles during his tenure. He also won 2 what they would call Jason, remember this, when he used to have the USA National Championships? They won 2 of those national championships, and he is the all-time winningest coach in the state of Florida.
Do you think he remembers you?
I don't know if he remembers me. I covered a couple of those state championships when I was down there. But yeah, he also, they also won a state title this past year. They outscored opponents this past year, 539 to 111. They currently have the number 1 recruit, I think DB recruit in the country down there in Lakeland, because I just saw something about he had flipped from what was it? Colorado? From Miami to Colorado. Going to Dion. So, but anyway, yes, for a guy to be 77 years old and be able to go out on top, I just want to say props to Bill Castle, a Lakeland High School / Florida legend, because that's a hell of a way and hell of a mark. And probably never got as paid as much as any damn high school coach in the state of Texas. I can tell you that damn much. These guys are making the money. These guys over there just don't. But on that note, hey, make sure you guys check out DeadSoxy once again. 25% off if you use that promo code Orangebloods. You can also do your custom socks if you want to, but we're wearing them. I've got them on right now. So make sure you check out our sponsor, really good partner, DeadSoxy.com. 25% off. Use the promo code Orangebloods. But for Jason, for Cole, for Alex, for Catch, we don't know where he is going to be. And for Alex, who won't be here next week, I'm one more time. Alex will not be here next week. So when Catch starts off the show next week, he goes, I have no clue where Alex is. Make sure you go in the chat. He said he's working in the Senior Bowl. You guys take care. We'll talk to you guys soon.